day, everyone. Back for another episode of Plague Diaries. And my original intention was to do these every week, but during the whole duration of this thing. But I think I've kind of fallen behind on that. Just to let you guys know, we started producing new episodes of Necromaniacs, which is the horror podcast that I did with Mike Scandato. We took a really long break. I think the last episode was the Halloween episode in 2019. So a good 8 or 9 months off on doing the show, but we're back in action. It's going to be weekly. So one of my biggest beefs about doing that show is that we weren't putting out episodes enough or on a more regular basis. I wanted to, take it seriously like I take, Metal Matters, which is a weekly show that comes out with Gimme Radio. That's been taking up a lot of my time, as well as my job, which has been a real pain in the ass lately, and the production of the new Tombs record. Minutes before this recording, I listened to the final mixes of the last 2 songs of this entire session. So I think we're all set. I think we got everything nailed. And mastering is in a couple of days, and I think it's a wrap. So yeah, we're looking forward to getting this thing out. The title of the record is called Under Sullen Skies, and it's long. It's a long one, over an hour. A lot of our records have been pretty long, but this one feels, at least in duration, it feels epic. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide whether or not the material is epic. But yeah, I'm excited, man. It's probably, I probably say this every time we put out a record, but this feels like the greatest thing that I've ever done in my life. I have to say, the Grand Annihilation, I did not have those feelings. And that record is going to go down, I think, in our catalog as the Cold Lake of the Tombs catalog, in my opinion. It's a record I kind of wish could be taken out of, out of circulation and erased from from the band's career. So, yeah, but that's the past. We got a lot of time has passed between now and then. We got the Monarchy of Shadows record just came out just a couple months ago. And based on what I've been told, this new LP is going to be out at the end of the year. So I know with the global pandemic wreaking havoc on everyone's schedules, there's probably a possibility that it's going to get pushed into 2021. But I haven't heard otherwise. And I know that these record labels have a schedule that they work with, and everything's been planned out for the entire year. And I know other labels have been pushing stuff back, but Season of Mist hasn't said anything to me about this thing being delayed. So just proceeding, as with the original plans. We got a bunch of guests on this record, which that's kind of been the trend, I guess, and sort of unintentionally the trend. We always got some guest players. But this one's got some real great additional musicians, guest musicians on it. Andy Thomas from Black Crown Initiate, who also spent about a year playing in Tombs, provided a solo for one of the tracks. And Andy's an incredible player, and I think he did a great job on the solo. It's very tasteful, very melodic. Ray Suhey, who you guys might know him from a number of different places, but he's like sort of this guitarist, virtuoso, master, or a true master of the instrument. And you might know him from playing in 6 Feet Under. He was in Cannabis Corpse. He was in East of the Wall, which is I would call them a little bit of a legendary band out here in New Jersey. A lot of the guys in the band were, been around for a while, doing the band for a bunch of years. Brett from Revocation was also in this band for a period of time, one of the founders, I believe. So Ray also played in this band, and man, I got to tell you, when I heard his solo, it almost brought tears to my eyes and how amazing it was. I mean, amazing in the same way that I listened to like Uli Roth or something like that from the Scorpions, or Michael Schenker, or, you know, one of those old school heavy metal era 1980 guitarists. And it was like, his solo was a piece of music in and of itself. And I mean that like truly. I mean, I'm not just trying to like, you know, hype up the record, but if you buy this record, you should buy it only for Ray's solo. I mean, if that's the only reason why you picked this up, you will have spent your money well, because I was just blown away. I listened to that part of the song over and over again, and each time it's like the first time. So that's Ray. We got Sarah Timms from a bunch of different bands. She was in, you know, Black Mare, Ides of Gemini, Black Math, Horseman, providing some backing vocals. And she's been on a few Tombs records, and she always does a great job adding this very ethereal, atmospheric voice to the song. And the track that we did together, I think it's let's put it this way. It's something that I've been trying to achieve since the beginning of the band. And I think that finally on this song, I kind of achieved that goal. So it was really cool to have Sarah be part of that. And yeah, I just, you know, I'm just blown away by it. We got Todd Stern, who played a solo on this record. Todd is in Hammer Fight and Psychroptic. Great band from Down Under. And yeah, he's just been around for a while. Another Jersey guy. Not saying that I'm a Jersey guy, but the dudes in my band are all Jersey guys who played in tons of bands down here. I mean, I do live in New Jersey, but I'm a carpetbagger. You know, I just moved here like less than 2 months ago. But so Todd's on the record too. Does an incredible solo. Well, we also have some other additional vocalists here, and these are pretty cool. My good friend Paul Delaney, my brother Paul Delaney from Black Anvil, does some guest vocals. Paul and I have been friends for a really long time. I've got nothing but respect for Black Anvil. In a lot of ways, I feel like Tombs and Black Anvil are sort of related in a lot of ways. I mean, we both sort of formed around the same time in Brooklyn, around a time when people weren't really doing the kind of stuff that we were doing. And yeah, I don't know. It's just like, I always feel a very strong connection to Paul and Rafe. And, you know, it's the core of that band is Paul and Rafe, and they've had different guys. You know, Gary from Kill Your Idols was a founding member, but he moved on to doing something else. You know, there's different people who've been in and out of that band. And similar to Tombs, who I guess I'm the last man standing in this band, but, you know, we've had a lot of different lineup changes, but the intentions have always stayed the same. And that's why I feel like the three of us are kind of on the same page. And last but not least, we have Dwid Hellion from Integrity, a band that I've been a huge fan of that band since the 90s, like basically since I discovered them. They stood out amongst a lot of other hardcore bands, and, you know, specifically records that came out on Victory. I feel like Integrity was always off to the side. Like they were a popular band. I remember, like, you know, very, very much people being into them, but aesthetically they always resonated more with me than, say, Strife, a band that I just never really listened to them. And you know, the basketball jersey vibe, the you know, that kind of hardcore guy thing was never something I related to. But the Integrity vibe with like the evil and the, you know, the occult imagery and, you know, these kind of you know, very nihilistic viewpoints, I think fit really well with the kind of stuff I was into around that time. I mean, I was heavily into Neurosis, Buzz Oven, Today Is the Day. Dead Guy was a band that was like, actually Dead Guy was kind of the gateway to me finding integrity. Like Dead Guy and Bloodlet were the two bands on Victory that I dug. And as a result, it sort of brought my attention to Victory Records, and I saw that there was this band called Integrity, and they had a record out called Humanity is the Devil. And that made me feel like they were a little bit different than the other bands like Snapcase and Strife. And just never really got into that stuff, And but yeah, Integrity, check them out back when I was a young man making my way in the world. And super, just metallic. There was this element of brutality. There's this dark vibe. It was heavy. There was a lot of bands that were heavy that I just wasn't that into, that were hardcore bands. They had this metallic edge, but their songs had to do more about gang violence and, like life on the streets and stuff like that. And that wasn't ever really my thing either, though I do like some of that music. It didn't hit me as hard as bands like Integrity did. And I guess you would call Integrity a metalcore band, for lack of a better term. I guess that's a legit title for them. But anyway, over the last couple of years, Dwight and I have had a correspondence, and we've grown to be, friendly. And I went out on a limb and I asked him if he'd do backing vocals on this one track called The Hunger. And he obliged, and he sent over some tracks, and they sounded amazing. And I'm really, really excited about that song. And it's a song that actually, I don't know if I should be saying this or not, but it almost started out as like a joke track. It was something that I wanted to put maybe on a 7-inch, and I was like, you know what, man, I love Sam Hain, I love Danzig, I love the first 3 Danzig records, I love John Christ, that original lineup, and I wanted to sort of pay homage to that era, like that creative statement in Glenn's career. Specifically Sam Hain, because they had the lyrics in Sam Hain were like some of the best lyrics ever written in like hardcore punk, metal, goth, whatever you want to call it, dark music. So I wrote the song The Hunger, and it's heavily influenced by Danzig 1 and the entire Sam Hain catalog. And I know that Dwight is a big Sam Hain fan. So it made sense to ask him to be on the track. And it's one of my favorite tracks on the record. And I can't wait for you guys to hear it. And I hope you're as enthusiastic about it as I am. So so that's the record, man. It's done. For some reason, it just felt like, out of all the things that I've done creatively, this felt like the biggest sort of travail. I feel like I started working on this record very intensely for a really long time. I felt like it took about 7 or 8 months for this thing to come into being. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that Season of Mist wanted to have a record out in 2020, an LP, a full length, in addition to the EP. So there was this pressure cooker like timetable that, I'm not going to say that it was imposed on us, but we were working under a very imposing schedule. There you go. And I guess we all rose to the occasion. Justin wrote 3 songs, Matt wrote a song, I wrote a bunch of stuff on it. The lyrics, I wrote all the lyrics. There's all these different contributors, and the lyric writing, I think that all of the journaling, I guess, if you call it, and notebook writing that I did really helped out this time around, because anyone out there who writes songs and writes lyrics, I highly recommend you to keep a book handy that you just write in, even if it's stuff you don't use, even if it's just phrases that you hear someone say, or you're reading a book or you're watching a movie and something sticks in your head, write it down, because that's literally where the ideas came for all these songs. You know, you kind of filter through them, and there's this continuum of thought that you start connecting the dots with all these things you write down. And from all those raw materials, you can write pretty concise creative statements. And that's how I did the lyrics on this record. I mean, that's how I do all the lyrics on all the records. But I felt like in the last like 16 to 18 months, I was really pretty diligent about working in my notebooks. And this is like, definitely pays off. And I started a brand new notebook after we completed the record. And I've been writing in that for one of the, the next thing I would do. So I'm always trying to capture these ideas because they're like phantoms dancing at the edge of your consciousness, man. They're these shadows at the edge of the campfire that are barely visible, and they just disappear if you don't capture it. If you don't trap that dancing vision, it'll go away and it'll be lost forever. So yeah, I highly recommend doing that. I've been diligent about it, and it definitely pays off. So yeah, real excited about the record. And there'll be news and tracks being released over the next few months, hopefully. So Val Noir is doing the album cover, and I mean, I shouldn't even have to tell anybody who he is. He's, a great artist and guy that I'm looking forward to doing more work with. This morning, I did my second COVID-19 test, and this time my right nostril seemed to be loosened up, so I was able to jab that swab really deep into my nasal cavity. So that's done. I wanted to stay on this program of getting tested every month, and so I stuck with it. And it's funny because over the weekend, Friday came around and I was pretty exhausted and, had to take a nap. I had a headache. I woke up on Saturday and I noticed I was coughing, and I was like, oh, geez, I got coronavirus. I'm going to die or whatever. I'm going to pass it on to people. So pretty much right then and there, I scheduled another visit through, Project Baseline. And I just, went down to the same Rite Aid and scheduled it for today. And yeah, I don't know. It's just for peace of mind, if nothing else. And, I haven't seen my parents since probably before March, actually. Probably the last time I saw my parents was February. And I got a really close relationship with them, and this is really a long time for me not to see them. And I would rather have the peace of mind of knowing that I'm disease-free when I go and visit them. Because, they're getting older. They're in good health, but they're not, they got their problems, man. It's like, when you get to be above 70 years old, there's always something, you know what I mean? So I want to make sure I'm good because I want to see them before the summer really kicks into full swing and, all that sort of stuff. So I went ahead and I did this test. I should be getting the results emailed to me in the next few days. And, I'm sure everything's going to be cool because aside from being in the studio, I haven't really seen anybody. I just been holed up here, doing my thing, working at home, training as hard as I can within the confines of my place here. I ended up buying one of these water-based, it's like a base-mounted heavy bag with this like water tank as the base. And it's not the best thing in the world, but I can't really kick it very hard. I can't lay into it full on, but it's allowing me to get a good workout in every day. And one of the cooler things I also got is this kind of door-mounted speed bag, which I've been taking full advantage of that. And that's actually one of the cooler things that I've purchased is during this pandemic quarantine related to health and conditioning and that kind of stuff. And speed bag's always been a fun training exercise for me. I always enjoyed doing that. And we're in the 2020 kettlebell shortage, so I only have one kettlebell. It's a 25 pounder, so kind of light. Probably should be using something a lot heavier than that, but I can't even order kettlebells. I don't even know where to find them anymore. Everyone's sold out. And, I guess I look on Amazon and some, you buy stuff on Amazon and like sometimes you get something that you didn't really expect. So if I'm going to buy a piece of equipment like a kettlebell, I want to go to a reliable source. So I go, to Rogue Fitness or On It. And, I feel like if you buy one of these like off-brand kettlebells, you might get something that's labeled 25 pounds, but it might actually be like 18 pounds or something. You know what I'm trying to say? And I would rather buy something from a legit source that I know has been vetted and I trust. So I got that one kettlebell. I got one of those thick ass like Thai jump ropes, which that's like a whole new thing if you've never used those. And that's been a huge part of my training for ever since I started doing Muay Thai is jumping one of those thick ass like Thai, weighted Thai ropes. And I just been keeping it together, man. I've been making it happen. And the workouts really have been the saving grace, man, because it gets pretty dark here by yourself. And, I'm starting to understand, true isolation, I guess, or at least some kind of closer understanding. Because, I'm not completely isolated here, but without the stimulation of leaving the house or having to leave the house every day and go to your job or going, on a regular schedule, your mind starts traveling and exploring these parts of your personality that the door has probably been closed on those sections for a really long time. And you're kind of forced to look at yourself in a different way. And that's been like a big part of, of my sort of meditations around here. And it's been heavy, man. And, once again, I'm trying not to, I'm not going to be defeated by this, but there's been a lot of darkness when left to this sort of device. And, I don't know, just thinking out loud here, but, it's like if you've ever taken like a lot of psychedelics, like if you've ever taken like a lot of high dosage of mushrooms and you're walking down this like corridor and you see opportunities to go down a different path that leads into like complete desolation. Or if you avoid that somehow and you go left instead of right, you're going to be okay. And I guess that's kind of been like the daily grind here for me, aside from all of the tasks and responsibilities I have with my job and the band and doing podcasts and all this other stuff, is trying to steer away from the truly dark thoughts I've been having. And, and it's just a lot of it is just stuff from the past, like ways that you fuck up and people that you've hurt and mistakes that you've made and decisions that you should have taken choice A instead of choice B, and how did I end up here, and all these kinds of, a myriad of different thoughts. And, being here by myself alone, with no real idea about when things are going to change, kind of forces you into that mindset. So anyway, that's been the grind, man. That's the gig, that's the number you have to do here. And I just want to talk real quickly about all the protests and everything that's going on and just the insanity and the way that everyone is just at each other's throats right now, and how the country hasn't been this divided since the 1800s when we had the Civil War. And, ironically, or maybe not so ironically, those thoughts are kind of echoed in the fact that there's all this like debate over pulling down statues in the South and the Confederate flag and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, hey, I think that in history, the conquering army rewrites history, and there's no way that the Robert E. Lee Memorial should exist since we won the North. The Union won the war, and the traitorous South should have to comply with whatever ideas the triumphant Union has. And I think that all those statues should have been taken down back in the 1800s, in my opinion. And it's a sensitive topic. I understand that. The Confederate flag. I mean, I can understand certain people looking at it as heritage, and if you want to fly that flag on the back of your pickup truck, that's on you. That's your responsibility to answer questions about that. And then if you're a business like NASCAR and you decide that you don't want to utilize that flag anymore, that's on you too. And I think that that's a socially responsible thing to do. And so I support that. I support both ideas, I guess. I support a company or a business not wanting to fly that flag, wanting to update their image. I mean, it's the new millennium, by the way. And maybe some of that stuff from the 20th century and the centuries prior should be let go at this point. Yeah, but also, if you want to, on a personal level, portray yourself as somebody who would fly the Confederate flag, that's up to you. And I say this fully aware that there are friends of mine, people I've toured with, that actually look at the Confederate flag as part of their heritage. And I can still, I'm not going to alienate those people, but I have my ideas, they have their ideas. And speaking of differences of ideas, I'm not somebody who surrounds himself with people who think exactly the way I do. As a matter of fact, I have to work with people who are intelligent people, educated people, people who have accomplished a lot in their careers, people that I actually, I get along with on a personal level, except for when it comes to politics. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I don't think we should be at each other's throats. I think that there's people out there that I work with, one guy in particular, that's a really heavy duty Trump supporter. I know that sounds like infuriating, right? And yet there's this duality to our relationship, because though we disagree completely on anything political, I really like this guy and we get along, and we agree about a lot of stuff. I like working with him. I respect him as a professional. And I think he's somebody that I trust, and somebody that I would go to bat for him. I have his back on everything except for for politics, of course. And I don't know, man. I just it's such a volatile time, and I just think people need to broaden their ideas, that not everything is black and white, and there are different nuances. And that's not to say there aren't totally ignorant people out there that should be destroyed. I mean, I know that that's true for sure, but that's maybe the exception than the rule. I mean, there are definitely people out there that are so far out and out of touch and completely delusional in their reality that they've completely marginalized themselves, and that they should be eliminated. But once again, I think that's the exception to the rule. One more thing, just and I think that I never really understood Black Lives Matter until right now. And I think I might have misunderstood that all these years. Initially, and maybe I should blame the people who came up with that phrase, because if you're trying to come up with a slogan or some sort of thing, you should eliminate all doubts. So Black Lives Matter, in my new vision, I totally support it, because my new understanding of that statement is that, all lives matter, but that's like an empirical truth in the universe. However, at this point in history, because black people are being murdered by police, and there's like who knows, for forever in this country, black people are being murdered by the cops, or there's been a systemic, vendetta against black people. I mean, they were brought to this, they didn't come to the United States on their own. They were brought here for the most part as slaves in chains. And then they just had to assimilate into a society that, at least initially, had a very much antagonistic relationship with them. And over the last few hundred years, things have evolved for sure. But there's still this like systemic situation built into the fabric of our society, which singles African Americans out as the other, the scapegoat, and I think that now is the time for the awareness of that to come to the forefront. And that's what Black Lives Matter means. At least that's what it means to me. And like, I get confused about a lot of this political stuff, honestly. I'm always suspicious of groups. I'm always suspicious of extremists, such as the far left and the far right, and people who are out there doing violence I don't think are necessarily on the right page, and the whole Antifa thing. I mean, I've made a lot of statements about how I don't agree with Antifa, and I will never, ever believe in Antifa. I'll never support anything, even though we agree on the dogma. I just don't think it's the right thing to do, to go out there and fuck shit up wearing a ski mask. I don't think that's a solution. That's a positive thing. Protesting, yes. If you want to have like a standoff with the police, sure. If you want to go out there and destroy someone else's property, I don't think that's a good idea. Now, there's a nuance to that too. If you want to go out there and bust up a Starbucks, or like, bust up a Chase Bank, or, throw a bottle through a window of a police station or something like that, go do that. If you feel like you need to go out and be violent, maybe that's the kind of violence you should do. But if you're going to bust up someone's store, someone's shop, especially now, where that shop has been closed for 3 months, and this guy's like put his life into something, and it's really, really precarious. It might not even reopen because the economic drain on being shut down for all this time. If you and your little friends want to get together with your ski masks and your anarchy symbols and like bust up that guy's place, then I think you've completely lost the plot of what this is all about. So I don't know. I just think, do what you want, man. But you got to be responsible. And I guess that's kind of my, for lack of a better term, LaVeyan sort of philosophy kicking in here, where it's like, yeah, do what you want. I think it was Aleister Crowley who said, "Do what thou wilt," and be able to fully experience what those consequences are, and not shirk away from your responsibility and the consequences of your actions. So yeah, that's it for today. I got to get back to work. Got a fuck ton of things to do today, and I hope everyone's staying safe, everyone's staying healthy. And thanks for listening. I know that probably the number of you guys that are listening to this particular podcast have been probably dwindling a little bit, but thanks for listening. And yeah, if you haven't checked out Metal Matters, check that out. That's where every week I got something coming out. And then real soon we'll be relaunching Necromaniacs with myself, Mike Scandato, who I founded this thing with, and our brand new co-host, Jeff Cackside, formerly of ISIS and Palms. And Jeff and I have been friends forever. And it's a no-brainer that we're working together on a podcast, because he's another movie guy, loves films, and loves to talk too. So keep an eye out in July. That will be relaunching, and I hope everyone has a good day. Be safe and take care.